Alright, hey you nine. I'm going to teach you how to use Google SketchUp to draw shapes today. So we're going to be using it to draw up this shape. So it's the forked bracket from class. It's kind of a difficult shape, and we're just going to be able to work through it nice and slowly, and by the end of it you should be able to understand how the program works. So I've got my ruler to help measure my shape, I've got the bracket, and I've got Google SketchUp open. So the Google SketchUp logo looks like a sort of red staircase. You'll have it on any of the school laptops that you need to borrow, and we also have, well, it's a free download from the Google SketchUp site. So if you need to go to the Google SketchUp site, you can always just open a new window in Chrome. You can go to Google SketchUp, and I think they just renamed it to SketchUp a few years ago. But yep, so SketchUp, and then you should be able to download SketchUp. Fairly easy. It wants to ask you a few questions. We're going to use it for educational use, and it wants to know your name and your school and things like that. We have actually gotten a special version of SketchUp, so if you do put in your name properly, they will give you the full version of it for free. I think anyway. So that's worth doing, but you can always just fill it in however you want. So anyway, I've already downloaded it and I've started the program up. I've got a new file that I've opened by just going File, New. And it comes in with a screen with a man. You might have this up here into all your tools. I've just pulled it down here so my screen looks a bit nicer now, but all the tools should be fairly easy to use. The first thing we want to do is we want to get rid of the man here. So to do that, I just move my mouse over, click on him, and hit the delete button, and he's gone. Okay, so the tools that we want to use most when we're drawing is this tool here, which is called a shape tool, and you can use a rectangle, you can use a polygon or a circle with that, or a rotated rectangle, which we don't really use that often. So you'll use the rectangle, and to do that you can draw any shape by clicking to start and clicking to stop. Then we're going to use the push-pull tool, which makes things, when you click on it, turn 3D. So you click once, move it up and down, click it again. Then we will use the arc tool, which is this one here. So you click to start an arc, click to end an arc, and then you can move it around until you're happy with what it looks like. So I guess that looks okay. Then I can use the push-pull tool again to push it back and get rid of it, and I have a nice 3D shape there. So if I press Ctrl-Z, I can get back to the start. So the first thing that we're going to do when we're drawing this shape is we're going to come up with the basic size of it. So if I measure with my ruler along the bottom, I can see that this here is 90 millimeters. And in terms of the length, if I measure along this way, I'm going to have to be a little bit of a guess, so 255. So it's 90 by 255 millimeters. So what I want to do is create a 2D square that size. So I click on my square, and I can go in and click at the origin point there and pull, and it'll say it's 5,000 millimeters. It's huge at the moment. So I want to do mine 90 by 255. So I can go down really tiny and guess in the corner like this, but it's pretty hard. What I'm going to do instead is I'm just going to type it in. So I will go, what did I say it was? I said it was 90 millimeters by 255. So I type 90 millimeters, and then I write a comma, and then 255 millimeters. And you can see down the bottom there, when I move it, it's changing, and when I type 90 millimeters by 255 millimeters with a comma in the middle and press enter, it'll come up with a little shape. Now the little shape is here at the moment, and it's really tiny. So what we want to do is use the magnifying glass zoom extents, it's called. So it's different to this normal one, which just zooms us in and out, because what this one does is it just clicks and zooms straight in. What we want to do now is use the magnifying glass and pull to the left and back, and that'll make it smaller. If we pull it forwards, it goes in, so we can get a better view of it. And then we want to use the panning tool, which is this little circular one here, and we can move that around until we get a good view of it. So I've got the basic shape now. If it didn't have any cutouts, if this was just going to be a rectangular prism, I'd nearly be done. All I would need to do would be to work out the height. So if I measure the height of it, I get that it is 45 millimeters. So what I need to do now is use the push-pull tool, which is just here. So I click on that, I click once on the top of my shape, and I start to pull up. and I can see changing down the bottom there. You can see it right down the bottom right hand corner of there. I wanted to make it, what did I say it was again? I wanted to make it 45 millimeters. So I type in 45 millimeters and press enter. So what I've got now, if I pan around, is that is the size of my bracket, and now I just have to start cutting pieces out of it. So this brings in now a new tool. So far we've used the rectangle tool there to make our shapes and the push-pull tool to pull it up. Now sometimes you want to make measurements without cutting out straight away, and that's where you can use the tape measure tool. And what the tape measure lets you do is it lets you make marks on top of your shape without actually doing any cuts yet. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to do these parts here. So it's forked in two, but in the actual thing down here, we only have one bit. So what I need to do is divide this into three. So if I measure the top of them, I can see that each one is 25 millimeters wide. So from here to here is 25 millimeters. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the tape measure tool, and I'm going to click into a corner, and then I'm going to type in 25 millimeters. And that gives me a mark along the top, and I do it on this side as well, 25 millimeters, and that gives me two lines on the top there. Now what I want to do is measure how far back it goes. So I get my ruler again, and I put it on the bottom, and I can see that it is 95 millimeters from there to there. So I use the tape measure again, I click, and I pull back, and then I type in 95 millimeters. So now I've got a ruler, shape, which is the dotted lines, and I can then go in with my pencil tool. So it's shaped like a pencil here, and it lets you draw in lines. All you need to do now is go close to it, and it will snap to it. It comes a little red X there, and that's how you know it's on the line. So I click once, and then I drag to that point, and it'll draw in a little line. Then I can drag to the next one, and click it again, and it'll draw another line. If your line stops, click on the end point, and just do it again. And then we can see that I've got some shapes there now. So the actual pencil line has drawn in a solid line, and the rest is left as a dotted line. Now what I want to do is get rid of that middle area here. So now that I've drawn in my pencil lines, I can use the push-pull tool, and I can click on that, and I can manipulate that separately to the rest. So what I do is I move it down until it's right at the bottom, and then you can see there's like a little blue dot right when you put it on the edge there. If I click on it now, it'll disappear. So now it's not just low, it doesn't exist anymore. It's not small, it's gone completely. So now I've got the front of the fork here, and I want to get the back of the fork now, this bit here, to try and get rid of all of this shape here, because at the moment it's still very full there. So if I measure across on this bit, it comes to 35 millimeters. That's 35 millimeters thick there. So once again, I want to get my ruler, and I want to click on the corner, and I want to go to about there, and then I type in 35 millimeters. It's much easier to just type it in every time rather than worrying about getting it perfect with your mouse. Then what I want to do is I want to measure from there to there, and that'll give me this space here, and then I can cut out the rest that's back there. So that is going to be 20 millimeters. So I use the ruler again, I use the tape measure again, and I pull, and I click on the corner there, and I pull 20 millimeters. So now it's getting a bit crowded, but with all of these dotted lines, but I can still see where I went. I go in and put my pencil in, I click in the corner there, and then I pull it back to there. So now we can see that I'm using the pan around tool. You can see that solid line there. I want to use that push-pull tool again, which is there, and click and pull down. And when it says on face, I can click, and now it's disappeared. So now I've got my basic shape in, but I need to do the most difficult bit now, which is to put in these round curvy bits. So first, before any of that, it looks like it's getting a bit crowded with all of these dotted lines. So if I go up to edit, and then I go delete guides, that gets rid of them. They never come back, but you can just redraw them if you need them. So to get these circles at the front, first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to draw this outer circle. Okay, so what I need to do is work out where the center point of this circle is. So I think it's about at 4, so 40 millimeters. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get the tape measure and measure from this edge this time 40 millimeters. And that's the center point of my circle. Now, if I look up at the arc, I can see that it is 20 millimeters up from the base to the top there, 20 mils. So what I'm going to do is I know that I need to measure where my outer circle hit. I've confused myself. Let me go from the start. If I want to do this outer circle, I know that at the middle of it is at 40 millimeters from the edge. So right here, from edge to edge, I've done 40 millimeters. From here at the edge to here, 40 millimeters. All I need to do is get this tool. It's called the arc tool. And then I click up the top. I'll make sure that I can see it. Yep. I just use the pan tool. I'll click up the top. I'll move it right to the corner. And then I can move it around. And I want to go and click it on an edge. So when it says tangent to edge, that means that it's not crossing over at any point. So I can click there. And then I can use the push-pull tool. And I can make it disappear again. Now I'll show you again on the other side. I'll pan around. I go across, I make a ruler mark at 40 millimeters, type it in. I use the arc tool and I click at the top, I click at the bottom, and then I move it over to the edge so it says tangent to the edge. And then I use the push-pull tool to push it back. Okay. So now I've got, if I pan around, those curves that I wanted for the front. Okay? Now, to make the smaller circle, I need to do a circle shape, or I can do an arc, but I'm going to continue to do an arc instead of going in and drawing a circle shape. I could go in and just click there and then do my radius of 20 millimeters, and that would work. So I'll show you with a circle on this one actually. If you go and you find your center point, and we know that this here shares the same center point of the circle as the one above it. It has to, because if we put our ruler there, we can see that they share the same rough middle. Okay? The circle underneath here and the circle here is even the whole way around, so they have the same middle point. So if I put my circle there and click once, then I can choose whatever size I want. I measure the radius on this, and it is 20 millimeters. So I type in 20 millimeters, and I get a circle. Now, if I push-pull this, I want to make sure that I can see the edge along here when I'm doing it. The reason for that is I need to push-pull and then line it up there. I can't see where my mouse is, where the little point is. There's a little red dot that says on edge comes up. You want to click it there. And then that will give you a see-through part. The only problem is we've got this bit of a circle down the bottom. So what we need to do to get rid of that is use the eraser. And then we just rub over the bits there and rub over it there and there. And it will work. So now you've got a shape there. So we've had to rub out, if I go back, the bottom of the circle, which was left and not pushed away, and a little connective bit down the bottom. So you could choose to do it with a circle if you wanted. Another way to do it that involves setting up the page a little bit more but actually works a little bit easier and you don't have to rub anything out is to use the tape measure tool again. Go right on that edge there and write in 20 millimeters. That should give you a line there from the edge, 20 millimeters. And then from this one here, write 20 millimeters. Okay. So what that's given you now is the shape of an arc that you want to create. So you line it up to that, and then you pull it up to the other one, and then you go 20 millimeters. So basically what I've done is I've gone 20 millimeters out from the edge, which if I measure using this, whoops, it's 20 millimeters there, and then it's 40 millimeters there. So that's how I did it. So 20 millimeters, 40 millimeters. So I went 20 millimeters from there, and then 20 from the center point, and that gave me a circle. So if that one makes more sense to you, you can use it that way, or you can just use a circle and erase it. It's up to you. So now that I've got the circle here, I want to change my camera so I can see. I push pull again, and I've got my holes in. At this point, what I could do, again, if I wanted to, is I could go edit and delete guides, and that gets rid of it. The final thing we have to do is this one at the back here. So what this is it goes up roughly 10 millimeters at the bottom. So from here down to the bottom is 10 millimeters. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use the tape measure again. I'm going to click and I'm going to type in 10 millimeters. Then I can see that I need to go across 45 millimeters because that's the area where it's flat before it starts to curve. So I go and I click there and I go 45 millimeters. I type it in again. Then I want to look here. Okay. So from here to here where it starts to curve is 45 millimeters. But from here to here where the curve ends is 60 millimeters. That means that there's a 15 millimeter curve to that. The radius of that circle is 15 millimeters. So what I want to do is get a tape measure again and write 60 millimeters. And I need to make a curve now that sits in this area here and goes to there. So I click at the little cross for the intersection, I click again, and then what I want to do is just make it so it falls on that line. So I lined it up to this line that I've already drawn. Then what I want to do is draw in the rest of that curve with the pencil to the edge. Once I've got that line drawn in, I can use the push-pull tool to push it to the edge, and then it will disappear. So with all of these, what I'm doing with everything is drawing the lines first and then using push-pull to take it away from that initial big rectangle that we had. There's only one more thing to do now, this big curve here, and if we look at that, it is a circle with a radius of 4.5. So we use our ruler, 45 millimeters, sorry, we use our ruler, we type in 45 millimeters, and it lines up to this line here, which is nice. And then we know that it curves straight down to that line at the bottom there. So we can use the arc again. We click in the corner, we click in the corner again, and then we make sure that we've got it lined up with tangent to edge showing up. Then you won't have the problem of the curve going over at all. Tangent to edge, and it goes nice and blue if you've got it perfect. Push pull, make sure it lines up with the back, and we go edit, delete guides, and if we pan around, we can see that we have drawn this bracket using Google SketchUp. So thanks very much. If you have any problems, you can always ask me in class, and I look forward to seeing you drawing in Google SketchUp complex stuff in no time. Thanks for watching. Goodbye.